Welcome to So You Say, a podcast about the words we use, why we use them, how we use them, and how it affects our everyday life. Ultimately, we will be discussing the power behind our words. I'm Holly.
And I'm Susan. In our time together, we're going to explore those common phrases that we say to ourselves and others around us, the impact that those phrases make, and how to avoid the unintentional negative consequences those words may have. So You Say, we'll explore how even the smallest of words can have such a large impact for you and those around you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast, So You Say. As always, this is the podcast about the words we say, how we use them, the power in our words, and all those things in between. Just about having good conversation and about positively changing our lives. And as always, I am here with the amazing and powerful Sue, or Susan, as you all should call her.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
Yeah, today is going to be a really amazing theme. In my opinion, this subject matter is something that really rings true to me. And I'm really excited to talk about what we're going to discuss today, because we're going to discuss today the art, shall I say, of receiving and giving a compliment. Yes, there is an art to this because not many people are able to give and receive a compliment properly. And this is definitely something that I have struggled with in my lifetime. And I know as a fact, so has Susan.
This is definitely one of those areas where we went, let's take a phrase such as thank you, which is a pretty simple phrase. It's probably a phrase you use all day, every day, without even thinking about it, almost to the point where thank you has become a throwaway phrase for us. It's something we say and we put really no thought behind it.
Yeah, and we don't want compliments to be given or to be received in a manner other than the way that they should be given and received. And what we mean by that, again, something that I'm really familiar with myself, is I spent the majority of my life being given compliments and not receiving them properly. But the words that we will give you here are just examples of some of the words that you can use in order to receive a compliment. I'm sure across the board, especially with women, we have all been given a compliment and blown it off at some point.
Yeah, exactly. So, really, where this comes from is that historically, the phrase thank you is used as a term of gratitude. But as our language has developed and the years have gone on, it really has almost become kind of a politeness or a nicety that we really put no thought behind its use. Like somebody will hold the door open for you and you'll say thank you. Again, not necessarily an expression of gratitude as much as it's an act of being polite. And that really comes from the way as children we're raised to think of the word thank you. So oftentimes a parent, and I'm guilty of this, I've seen it with others, will tell their child, hey, you have to say thank you, please and thank you, for everything, and not really talk to them about why you're asking them to say please and thank you. Almost treating please and thank you like it's some type of token or exchange. I have to do this in order to get this. And we don't really think about what it means to say thank you
Right.
and
And we're also
say it.
discussing as well, you're welcome.
Yep. To say it and to receive it. So, with that in mind, we know that the word thank you can even be met with some suspicion like, hey, you're saying thank you to me. What do you want? And that can be again because we were raised to associate please and thank you and things like that with having to do something in exchange for that. So we'd like to kind of break this down a little bit and kind of get away from that idea of thank you and start to look at it for what it was really intended, which is to give and receive gratitude.
Yeah, we talk about the power in our words. And this episode that we'll be discussing today is about the power of gratitude and the power of the words thank you and you're welcome. It goes both ways. We want to just talk about giving and receiving compliments here, the history of it, because there is a history, the research on it, because there is research, and then the attitude on it that we as society see how we should give or receive compliments. I personally believe that so many people don't realize the impact that either negatively or positively receiving a compliment can have on the person who gives that compliment to you.
Yeah. Yeah. We've seen that thank you and the ability to both genuinely say thank you and also receive it. It actually is tied to our self-worth. So there is this psychotherapist and life coach out there that her name is Tess Brigham. And she talked about the idea that low self worth was one of the biggest reasons why, particularly receiving a compliment, a thank you being given to you, can be challenging for others to accept. She goes on to say this is referenced as a cognitive dissonance, where the discomfort experienced when two thoughts or ideas or values seem incompatible with one another.
Right.
So, to kind of break that down even more, it's basically if you don't believe in yourself and your ability to do something, then when somebody compliments you or praises you, it's at odds with what you believe you are. And then, therefore, you struggle to kind of accept that compliment or that praise because within you, you don't actually believe that that's true.
Yeah, it's as crazy as saying, well, let's put self worth and confidence in the color of the sky. If I believe that the sky is red and you tell me it's blue, well, I'm not going to believe you,
Mhm.
because I, in my heart, think it's red. If you, in your heart, do not have confidence in yourself and self worth, when someone compliments you on something that has to do with that, it doesn't matter what they say. You're never going to believe them. You're never going to be able to receive that compliment
Yeah.
and respond to it in the best way that you should be. And we want to talk about responding to compliments in the way that it will affect our lives positively here. Of course, there's a way to react negatively, where the compliment can be received in a bad way.
Mhm.
And that's actually where I think a lot of people are right now. I think people are given a compliment, and as we mentioned in the beginning, they just throw it away. They act like it's not true because they, in their heart, don't believe it is.
Right. It comes down to knowing your value. And I know that seems like a really big, large idea for such a small phrase of thank you.
Right.
But think about that. If somebody thanks you for doing something and you don't know your value, and therefore when they say thank you, you instantly are met either with you want to rebuke them, you want to explain why they're wrong, why they shouldn't thank you, why it's no big deal, like all of that stuff that we always tend to do when people take the time to say thank you to us. When you look at it from the point of view of you're diminishing your own value, a good compliment is empowering to both the giver and the receiver of the compliment. A good compliment, it really shows that when you give that good compliment that you are showing to somebody that you genuinely see that other person for who they are in the most positive of lights. So when they reject that, it really is defeating for both parties.
Yeah, we think that by not receiving a compliment just negates our self worth and our worth, but it also negates the person who's giving us the compliment's worth as well. And this is where it gets kind of deep and crazy because I never really thought of it that way until a couple years ago. I would be given a compliment and I would say, oh, no, that's not true. Someone would say, let's just give out an example. Someone would say, you have really beautiful eyes. And I would say, oh, yeah, they're okay. Well, by saying that, it's almost disrespecting this person's view and opinion. It seems crazy, but that's the case. Not only am I showing my self worth that's lower than low, but now
Mhm.
I'm responding to someone and negating their worth because I'm not listening to what they have to say, which is their truth. It's their
Right.
words, it's their opinion. And to them, it was important enough to point out, to tell me, because it meant something to them.
Mhm. So really there are two parts to this. There's how do you give a good compliment? Like, how do you really take it from this kind of throwaway thank you phrase that we have to a genuine expression of gratitude? How do you do that? That's probably the easier of the two. We'll
Right.
then also talk to you about the tricky part, which is taking a compliment. So let's ease into this
Let's
slowly.
delve into the shallow end first.
Exactly. Let's dip our toes, folks. How can you transform gratitude that you feel towards somebody into a genuine expression of things? Like how do you give a good compliment? How do you say thank you in a really powerful, impactful way?
Yeah, and this one seems kind of crazy, but this is a big one. Just be spontaneous. Don't
Mhm.
think too deeply about it. Don't get in your head. Don't worry about how this person will react. Just be spontaneous. The longer you wait, the less likely those words will probably mean something. And
Right.
that sounds insane, but it's the truth. If you feel it, say it. If you feel it, say it. That's
Yep.
it. And I had a really good example not too long ago, and I had mentioned it to Sue immediately. As soon as this happened to me, I called her in the parking lot of Target because it really made an impression on me. And there's three things that we'll be discussing here on how to transform, gratitude into a genuine expression of thanks. And it's be spontaneous, be specific, and keep it short. And we'll get a little bit deeper into those two. But my example that I am so happy to give on this podcast is all of those three things. And I was in Target. I wasn't having the best day. I was walking around just doing some shopping, and a random gentleman, I would say half my age probably, which makes me feel so good saying that. But a random gentleman, handsome, young gentleman, came up to me and said, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I saw you walking through Target, and I have to tell you, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And of course, it took me completely by surprise. Why? Well, it's spontaneous, right? This person came out of nowhere, a random stranger, and gave me this compliment. So I was a little shocked. Deer headlight eyes, jaw hit the floor. But immediately I thought, I could make this something really weird. But the truth of the matter is that this person probably felt somewhat uncomfortable because he prefaced that when he was giving
Mhm.
me that compliment. So for me to act weird about it, it's already kind of weird, right? So instead, keep it short and keep it really genuine. And the truth was, as I said to him, thank you. You know what? That means so much to me because today I'm not having the best day. And by you coming up to me and saying this, I just want you to know I really appreciate it. And it really made my whole day. And he said to me, You're welcome. I couldn't go on the rest of my day without saying it. And I don't need anything else from you. And I hope you have a great day too. And that was it. There was no notion of there needing to be more. And I think that's a lot of this. I think a lot of people get compliments and then they get into their head and they dig deep and deep and deep and deep. And they think there's something else in there that is another intention beyond the compliment.
Right.
Is this person hitting on me? Is this person going to, I hate to say this, could this person attack me in the parking lot? Again, we've talked about our minds going crazy, right? Going into the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
think a lot of that has to do with this. It was genuinely given, and I genuinely thanked. And I think that's what we have to remember when we give and receive compliments. But we're talking about the receiving here. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and that was a perfect example because what you hit on was exactly what we're going for. His compliment was spontaneous, it was specific, and it was short. That was the perfect give. And when you received it, you responded in a way that was
The same.
Yeah, specific. You said thank you. You said, it made my day. You kept it short. Both of you guys did what in the equation of a good expression of gratitude, a good use of the word thank you, a good use of the word give, and giving a compliment. That was the perfect equation right there. So we hit on those three things. Be spontaneous. If you're overthinking what you're going to say to somebody when you're about to give them a compliment, it can ring as hollow. And it's because people will notice if you are really trying to overthink or make something a little bit larger than what it is, which is where be specific helps. Now, it doesn't have to be a compliment about looks because, as we know, that can open up and trigger other things with people. But you could say to somebody, "I like the way you did this. I like I like your shoes, or I like your sense of style, or that joke was really funny." Whatever it is, be very specific. It allows the person receiving the compliment to understand what you were seeing in that interaction and why it prompted you to give them the compliment. And then again, keep it short. Doesn't have to be this really long-winded thing. Some of the best compliments to give and to receive are short and specific, and it doesn't leave the person receiving it feeling like they have to give back even more. Again, the transaction feels equal. Spontaneous, short, specific. The other side of that equation is gracious, thankful, short. They balance each other out.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're calling this an equation for gratitude because we can just say you want to remember this the three S's, right? Spontaneous, specific, and short.
Mhm.
Easy. If you're ever thinking of giving a compliment, that's the equation. I love that you called it that. I think it's perfect. I think it's
Well,
perfect.
thank you very much. That's a really nice compliment. And it's great because it is something that was very specific and now it's memorable. It's
Right.
short and I appreciate that.
There you go. Yeah. So the tricky part now
Mm,
is how to receive. And we did, again, talk about this briefly. And I've realized the very difficult part is being gracious.
yeah,
We have a tendency to downplay a compliment with excuses, and then that makes the giver of the compliment seem like they've wasted their time or their breath or their energy or their space. What
right.
I mean by this, and I'm sure that we can all relate because I have done this hundreds of times in my past. I
Hmm.
had been given a compliment and they would say, "I really love your outfit." And I would say, "Oh, this ugly shirt."
Hmm. Yep. Yeah.
Right?
Think about how many times in your life we've all been guilty of this, where you've received a compliment and you've fluffed it off with a negative response. Like somebody will say, "Hey, thank you for." If you ever worked in customer service, if somebody says to you, "Thank you," it's so quick to be like, "Ah, that's my job."
Right.
And you've basically just burst the bubble of somebody who took the time to say thank you to you for something, and then you kind of pop it. It's like this little bubble of happiness is floated out, and you take this little pin and you prick it,
Right.
and you
And why
pop
are
it.
we questioning the reason? Why
Right,
is it, oh, it's my job? Oh, it's because I'm a nice person. Oh, it's because, why does there have to be a because?
right.
Just take a compliment, just
Yeah.
receive a compliment, and that's it. I think, again, all of us can think in our minds about our past and being given a compliment and downplaying it. What we need to realize is by doing that, it, again, we brought this up in the beginning, that's diminishing the worth, the opinion, the time, the energy of the giver of the compliment, especially if this is someone who you're close with, and even more so if it's a stranger. Because how hard and odd and strange or awkward is it for a stranger to compliment you on something? And now you're saying this to them, it's making you come across as really ungrateful and bitchy, is
Yeah.
what it is.
I think where asked an interesting question, and it was why. So why do we do this? And I think there are a couple of things that create this knee-jerk reaction we have to kind of negate compliments comes from a place of we talk about growing, when I mentioned earlier when you're a little child, you're taught please and thank you are part of a transaction for getting stuff. So that's something right there. So immediately you can start to associate compliments or thank yous or anything like that with, oh, now I have to reciprocate something. There's going to be something that's asked of me in order for me to get something that I want, and so you start to associate that. We're also taught that modesty and humility are these two traits that I think as a society we view really favorable or agreeable, and that if you take a compliment, that's at odds with these traits that we kind of associate such strong positive feelings about. That if you were to take a compliment, it goes against the idea of being modest and you know and acting with humility, and that you might actually seem vain.
Vain, or even worse, like cocky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're not cocky if you take a compliment. Well, that's not entirely true. I guess it depends on how you take a compliment.
Right. Yep.
Right.
The other thing is I hinted at it when I talked about it with parents, but we've seen in the past where a compliment, I think every one of us has been in a position where a compliment has kind of been used as a weapon, almost to maybe get something, to kind of get us to do something that maybe we don't necessarily want to do or wouldn't naturally have given forth. But a compliment can kind of sweeten the road. And depending on what your experience is with compliments in the past, that sweetening of the road could actually start to feel like a burden, where when somebody gives you a compliment, you just want to cringe inside because you go, oh, now I have to do something, or I have to do this, or and you've really been programmed. So that kind of depends on what your past is, as far as how were compliments given to you as a child or growing up. How did you see others receive compliments? Because again, we learn by watching. We're a society, we watch one another, and we take our social cues off of how others do. So if you grew up in an environment where compliments were kind of maybe not genuinely given and you could sense that, you're going to expect to see that in other places. We've hinted at this before when we've had other conversations. We always look at the past and we look for patterns. So if your pattern of complimenting, whether giving and receiving, has a negative connotation where it was going to be something that was weaponized or something where you had to do it or whatever the case was, that pre-programming is going to carry over into what you look at with compliments, with giving and receiving going forward.
Yeah. So it can be pre programming, it can be low self worth. And some of the people who really struggle with this have some sort of social anxiety.
Hmm.
And I know for me, that's something definitely that also plays into this. My biggest problem with receiving a compliment properly through my life has been because of my self confidence and my self worth. I never thought I was worthy of receiving compliments. And sometimes it could be all three. Sometimes it can be, again, programmed, and it could be a social anxiety issue. It could be one, it could be three, it could be two of these things. But I think, these three things, I would pretty much say the majority of the world
Yeah.
probably has at least one of them.
Right, to some degree or another, if not a
Right.
combination of all three. Social anxiety, past reactions to seeing compliments both given and taken, and then the idea that we kind of have these traits that we put up on a pedestal that may be at odds with being able to genuinely accept when people are gracious to you, when they say thank you, when they present you with a compliment. It goes against these other values that we kind of hold up in high esteem, at least it appears to.
Right.
And what we'd like to kind of do is go, okay, with those three factors in mind in all different combinations with people, how can you take a compliment?
Right. Right. Well, here's the easy one. Keeps
Yes.
it easy though, right? Is it? I know we're laughing about this. Was I being sarcastic? Well, when someone says, you look great, or you are beautiful, or I love your outfit, or whatever, what should you say? Thank you. And that should be so easy, right? It should be so easy. But it's not.
Hmm.
It's not. A compliment comes from a person's experience of you, and you don't get to contradict that. You don't get to define their experience of how they see something.
Right.
If they see that, say thanks. That's
Yeah.
it. And
And
it seems so
thank
simple, but it's
you
not.
is a full sentence. Thank you is a full sentence. And if
Period.
you get
Right.
comfortable with that idea that thank you can be enough, and you let that person see their experience and their interaction with you for what it is, and you say thank you right there, that is a perfect response
Yeah.
to a compliment. You don't need to go any more forward. Now, I know we're going to want to, and we'll get into, it's kind of against our nature to say thank you because that bumps up against the idea of being humble and being, and not being vain and things like that. We worry that this little short phrase is going to be this big giant, you personality defining thing, and it's
Right.
really not.
Right.
But start there. Start understanding that thank you is a full and perfect response to a compliment.
It is. And I know I said, oh, it's so easy, but it's not. It's
Hmm.
not. I know since I've changed the way that I receive compliments, now that I take them sincerely, when I am given a compliment and I say thank you, or I say thank you very much, thank you so much, people smile back. People react to that in a really positive way. And I think that's something we have to think about too. These simple words, without disagreeing with them, without feeling awkward about them, by just saying thank you and period,
Hmm.
someone will be happy with that. And I
Yeah.
know everyone thinks, well, you need to say more. No, you don't. Trust me, you will see the reaction on the person's face when they give you a sincere compliment and you just say thank you. They
Hmm.
will be happy with that, and you go on
Think
with your
about it.
day.
It's a sense of relief, actually. That for me was
Yeah.
the most amazing thing. When I realized that when somebody gave me a compliment and I looked at them, I looked them in the eye and I said, thank you, and left it at that. You kind of saw the anxiety that they had about giving the compliment go away. Like the compliment was given, it was received. That was exactly what we wanted to do. Perfect. There was no additional follow up. Now, again, we will talk about, with giving and receiving, it is not always comfortable for everybody to just say thank you and they feel like they have to follow up with something. And we'll talk a little bit about that here. But it's also amazing. It's something I think if you start to put it into practice, you're amazed at how effective the words thank you can be when
Yeah.
somebody compliments you.
And when a compliment is given sincerely and when it is received sincerely,
Hmm.
these are the things that we remember.
Hmm.
These are the things that change us. Like I had said to the person who had given me the compliment in Target, you've made my day. I was having a bad day until this point. And Sue knows this. I called her in the parking lot of Target and told her I was not having the best day. I will remember this for the rest of my life. It was a great exchange of a compliment being given and received. It was sincere, and I will remember it. This is a huge thing. We have to understand this is a happy ending. This is
Hmm.
not a bad ending. This is not the ending, that
Yeah,
you're gonna go home and be like, do you believe this happened? No, we're gonna say, wow, do you believe someone came up to me and said this and I feel good? We have to understand by the giving and the receiving sincerely, it will feel good for both people.
exactly. That's the point. When a compliment is well given and well received, both parties end up feeling good. So maybe you're not just comfortable with saying thank you and that's it. What else you could do? You could agree with the compliment. Because how nice is that? You're actually telling the person, wow, thank you. I agree with you. You're making that connection. Okay, so how do you agree with a compliment? We tend to deflect because we feel embarrassed by it, but it really is okay to agree. Like a perfect example um, might be something such as, somebody says to you, oh my God, I love your hair. Okay, so the first part of this, you say thank you.
Thank
Right
you.
there, that would be perfect. But if you feel like you need to add something to that to maybe boost up the happiness quotient in this equation, you can say, I appreciate that coming from you. Your hair always looks amazing. So now what have you done? You've also given a genuine compliment right back. And if that person can receive that compliment right back, they will also say, "Well, hey, thank you so much. That was really nice of you to say."
Right.
Right there. You gave, somebody gave, you received. You received it fully by saying thank you. You agreed with them. And then you took the little extra step and threw them a compliment back. Now, you don't have to do all three things. You could stop with thank you.
Yeah,
You
you
could
don't have to
stop
feel
after
obligated.
thank you.
Right.
I appreciate that coming from you. But what adding the little bit of, your hair always looks amazing is throwing in that idea of being specific. Again, we talked about the equation. So if you really want to try to feel like you balance that equation, you can say, "Hey, thank you so much. That means a lot coming from you. I always think your hair is amazing."
It's the cherry on top of the
Mhm.
compliment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't have to, as I said, you don't have to feel obligated to compliment back, though. If
Right.
this seems awkward for you, that's okay. And there's a time and a place for giving a compliment back, also.
Mhm.
If you don't know this person, you can say, well, your hair always looks amazing, right? That
Right.
would be really weird.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
because, that wouldn't work. But you have to understand that the person who gave you the compliment has stretched out of their comfort zone. And this is not just a stranger on a line at a grocery store. This is anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody has stretched out of their comfort zone. To give compliments is, for most people, not easy. It
Yeah.
should be easy, but it's not. Again, because I think a lot of that is being worried about how it's going to be received.
Mhm.
But if we learn how to give and receive compliments, then giving them and receiving them is so much easier.
Right. And I think that's actually a wonderful point that you're bringing up. If you, as somebody who gives compliments, start to get people who can receive them well and respond to you positively, you are going to grow in how you give compliments.
Hmm.
So let's say you and I are very comfortable giving compliments to one another.
Well,
And
you're
if I
amazing.
can, oh, thank you. And if I'm comfortable getting that compliment and I responded to you in a positive way, you're going to go, oh, okay, maybe now I feel more comfortable giving a compliment to somebody I'm not close with.
Right.
And you also remember how nice it feels.
Right.
If you give a compliment and somebody receives it well, you remember how nice that feels and you're going to want to do it more. So, again, going back to that idea of giving and receiving a compliment is an equation. The more you do the positive and you receive the positive, the more it exponentially grows. If
Right.
you're comfortable with giving a compliment because you know the person receiving it is going to receive it positively, you're more likely to give that. And in return, if you're comfortable with receiving a compliment, that's going to go back to the giver. It's going to show them that they can give a good compliment and that's going to boost them. So you're just lifting one another up.
Right.
And what a nice thing with the simple word as thank you. So we've taken thank you from a politeness into something that's just lifting people up and up and up, making you feel good, making you feel positive, making your
Yeah.
self esteem rise with both people. And
Yeah.
that's rare. A situation where two people interact where both of your self esteems can get a wonderful lift, I don't know if that happens with every interaction that you have in this world. But when you give and receive a compliment, you have that moment to have this amazing time where you are going to lift each other up.
Yeah, and I know that we make this sound so easy,
Mm,
right? It is not. We have
no.
discussed in the past, if not on our last podcast, probably the one before and the one before, that this is hard work and it takes practice. It
Yeah,
takes practice to learn how to not respond negatively to compliments. There's nothing wrong with asking someone for help. That is actually a compliment in itself. Just
right.
going out to somebody who can receive or give compliments really well and asking them, I want to be more like you. I want to lift the world up to this positivity level. Seriously.
Yeah.
And I need you, right? If
Look
someone said
around
that
at
to
the
me,
people who in your life who either give good compliments or receive good compliments. Because maybe you've got somebody who's a really good compliment giver, but you notice that they don't receive compliments well. But you can learn to them by saying, hey, I love the way you give a compliment. Can you help me? I'd love to learn how to give compliments the way you do. They're so genuine. By
right?
leading that in, you're actually kind of inviting them to respond and receive that compliment that you like the way they give compliments in a positive way. And they're going to see that. So you're going to be teaching one another.
Yeah.
And the
And if it
reverse is
feels,
true as well. If you see somebody who can receive a compliment really well, go to them and say, wow, you are so good. I hear people complimenting you and you are so good at doing that. Can you help me? And people do genuinely want to help one another. They want to see you. They want to feel good and give goodness in return. That is kind of human nature. But it does come down with like you said, practicing how to not do that knee jerk negative response. When we talked about giving a compliment, being spontaneous, being specific, being short. Another S we could throw in there is be sincere. Just
yeah,
be sincere
yeah.
about it.
And
And
it doesn't have to be
when
a
you
long thing, right?
when you're right, it doesn't have to be a long thing. It doesn't have to be a drawn out thing. It can just be if it's coming from a place of sincerity, that comes through when you speak it. And by speaking sincerely and being able to respond sincerely, and not just negatively, but taking the time to think, how would I respond? What is the intention of this compliment? If you know it's coming from a sincere place and a positive place, your responding positively is just going to reinforce that so
Mhm.
that when you do hear this compliment, you already have this reinforcement that it's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. So we want you to message us, and we're going to
Hmm.
drop our email at the end of this, and tell us maybe about a time that you received a compliment and it went really well. Because if you have that, we definitely want to hear about that. Or a time that you wanted to give a compliment and maybe you didn't know how, or it was awkward and you didn't. Any type of situation that you may have had in your life about giving or receiving a compliment. You can even tell us about a time where you deflected a compliment and maybe how that makes you feel now. And I think
Yeah.
we can all think about that too.
Yeah. I
Maybe,
think of all the times I said to people, oh, no.
right.
And now I go, oh, that was kind of crappy. Because I basically took something that they were proud of, that they were sincere about, that they, put some thought into and genuinely felt happy, and I pushed that all away.
Yeah.
And I thought I was being humble,
Yeah.
but I wasn't. I wasn't. I was just negating their experience of my interaction with them. And that
Yeah.
that wouldn't have been my intention. I don't want somebody to think I don't care that they enjoyed something that I did or that they were impressed by something I did. I want people to know that I do care. If I'm doing something good and you take the time to tell me I'm doing something good, I want you to know I care about that. But in the past, I've absolutely deflected that. And I think about it now and it's embarrassing. I go, "Oh, that was not the way to respond at all."
Where I had started to transition when I started to get more confidence in myself over my life, I started to see how I received compliments transition as well. I went from, we'll use the example, I love your outfit. I went from, oh, this ugly sweater to, oh, this sweater, I got it for $5 at the thrift store, to, oh, thank you so much, to, I love this sweater. It's my favorite. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
and that builds with confidence and self worth. We are going to discuss that in another podcast. So
Yep.
that's the foundation of this. And we, of course, need self confidence and self worth to do so many things in life, to succeed, to be happy, to have good relationships, to have good communication. And I'm thrilled that we talked about this, because I think there's so many people out there who are thinking, shaking their heads, hopefully shaking their heads and going, oh yeah, I've totally not taken a compliment when I should have. And now I feel kind of cruddy about the fact that I didn't do it right. But now is our chance, right? Now is our chance today. Again, hard work to start moving forward and think about our words, think about how we're going to take or receive compliments and make a change. And we will see that change happen. I promise you, you will see it and it will be amazing.
Yep, absolutely. It is a sneaky little way that you're going to be able to work on your self-esteem.
Yeah.
And that's really what a lot of this comes down to when we talk about language. We're not just talking about the words that we say. We're talking to you about how your value and your worth and your self-esteem is translated within the words you say, and being able to say thank you in a genuine way and receive a compliment in a genuine way goes a long way in all of those areas.
Yeah, well, we're going to end it with a compliment. Thank you, Susan, for being with me again through this podcast episode. Thank you for being an amazing friend. And just thank you for being beautiful, you.
Oh, and thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's been exciting. It's been a chance to give out some love and enthusiasm, and it's helped me as well. So I'm grateful. I'm very, very grateful. Like I said, we'd like you guys to reach out to us, talk to us about what your experience is giving and receiving compliments. You can reach out to us at soyousaypod@gmail.com. Again, that's soyousaypod, Pod, @gmail.com.
Oh, and I'm so excited about our next one. We're out of here, guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Later.